question for you. Um, you're going to be sitting and playing for this. So, do you want to switch for doing the children out, or do you want to play? Because then for this one, you'll be out eventually.
She's gone. Only darkness every day. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. This house ain't so warm. Anytime she goes away. Well, anytime she goes away. Well, anytime she goes away. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, and I know that I'm going to make it. Every day must be like a holiday, just as long as I find my way. Our Father is who is in heaven. way.
Just apple drop.
Good morning, Education. Happy to be welcoming you to the service this morning with our interim minister, Reverend Karen Anderson, and our music director, Kaisa Fern. Our services are recorded and available on our YouTube channel midweek. Masks are now optional in worship, although the back right-hand side will remain masks required. We welcome and celebrate the noises, movements, and mirth that little ones bring to our worship as a valuable and important members of our community. A big welcome to the people streaming. We are glad you're here. And for those of you who are first-time visitors this morning, welcome. If you would like to learn more about First Parish, please fill out a welcome card, which can be found in the back of your pew, and then you can place it into the offertory basket. Welcome on this morning that we make sacred by our presence together. And now Rev Karen has an announcement for us.
I have two announcements. Could you guys look at the back of your order of service and just make sure that you read everything about the Native Land Conservancy? Okay? Your name will be mud if I ask you and you haven't read it. The other thing is, a couple weeks ago, I preached on reproductive justice. We are kind of part of our stewardship drive right now, and Gail's going to give us a stewardship testimony.
This is a first. I've never stood here and done this before, so it's kind of exciting. But oh, thank you. My speech this morning is titled 30 Years of UU in Under 5 Minutes. And why I support this church financially as well as volunteer. Growing up in a small rural town in what is now called the Metro West area of Massachusetts, I was fortunate to have experienced the leadership of a minister whose worldviews captured the attention of me and my peers. His more progressive views that some adults in our conservative Protestant congregation found to be not Christian enough instilled in us, the younger generation, a curiosity about local and world events. In high school classes and youth groups, he challenged us to acquire habits of questioning decisions made by those in power, which probably didn't impress our parents too much, within the context of justice, equity, and fairness. Our youth group discussions were lively and created lifelong bonds of friendship. We learned that our opinions mattered and that it was important to have them as well as the facts to back them up. Most of us carried these lessons with us. In having a family, I became a single parent at 34 years old with 2 daughters, ages 2 and 4. We moved to a new state and began a new life where I had landed a new job. My parents supported my new status as a single mother, but my extended family kept us at arm's length, unsure, I suppose, of what to say and or how to include us in the family traditions. Single mothers living independently during this time was still somewhat of an anomaly. Indeed, I was the first in my immediate and extended family to graduate from college and later become divorced. During this time, single women were not allowed to have credit cards in their name. Also, I was not able to rent an apartment without a male relative vouching for me. The electric company turned down my application for service at this apartment because renting to a single woman with children was against their policy. Once again, a male friend in real estate went to bat for me. Ultimately, I had the down payment needed to apply for a mortgage on a very small house, but you guessed it, I was turned down because of my marital status. I share this story to illustrate the enormous need that I had at the time to find a supportive and accepting community of people where the girls and I didn't feel different. Welcoming that we experienced at that church was a gift, truly a gift, that helped ground our lives as a family. Today, upon reflection of nearly a lifetime of membership as a UU, I am so grateful for those early hometown experiences that prepared me for recognizing that this denomination fits my worldview and inspires me to grow into new knowledge and ways of thinking. It also enriches and restores my spirit. Throughout my career working with and advocating for families and children, I realized how much in alignment my values as an educator and school leader were with our UU7 principles. That realization sustained me through some very challenging and stressful work experiences, but also gave me joy when there were positive results and outcomes. I'm grateful now at this point in my life to be able to continue to learn and grow here at First Parish Brewster UU. Our church continues to help me stay grounded and provide the invaluable opportunities to engage with people who strive to live intentionally, support one another and the surrounding Cape Cod community. It's a privilege to know, work, and sing with the talented and knowledgeable people of this church. Sunday sermons, readings, and meditations focus my mind and it energizes me for the week ahead. For me, this church is an extension of home. First Parish Brewster will continue to be a force for good into the future, and I will continue to support it as much as I can financially and by working side by side.
Our group will be sharing music that has been suggested and that we worked on, with February's theme being equity and justice. Today, Rev Karin will be preaching about racial injustice, and music has been chosen that comes from the voice of some of those who have been oppressed. As I see fit, I will be introducing some of these songs in order to give some more context to the music and in appreciation of the culture and heritage of the music and the people. For this introit that we're about to sing, Ella's song, I encourage you to visit the back of your order of service just to read a little history about this particular song, and the rest I will be speaking about.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Until the killing of black men. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest.
Young people come first. They have the courage where we fail. And if I can but shed some light as they carry us through the gale, the older I get, the better I know that the secret of my going on is when the reins are in the hands of the young dares run against the storm. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Not needing to clutch for power, not needing the light just to shine on me. I want to be one in the number as stand against tyranny. Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching us to stand up and fight is the only way the struggle survives. We who believe in freedom can. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes.
That was fabulous. Thank you. Many years ago, I was the executive director of Peace Action of Central New York. And the work that we did at the time was against kind of nuclear proliferation, against arms trading, Pentagon bloat. And we were against Star Wars, not the movie, but the missile defense system, okay? Anyway, while I was there as executive director, everyone on my board was either a professor at Syracuse University or they had like PhDs in nuclear engineering and stuff like that. They were a very heady bunch of people. So maybe the second time at a board meeting, we're sitting around at somebody's dining room table having a board meeting and they're talking about all this stuff, and honestly, it's kind of going like right over my head. And at one point, I asked them, I'm like, okay, what's the way that we go about getting more members to sign up for Peace Action? And they said, well, normally we go to the state fair for 8 days and we put together like a little booth and we hand out information. And I'm like, the state fair? A state fair where they have like butter sculptures and enough cotton candy to put down an elephant. Could we maybe just think of doing one thing and then putting together a brochure that has like 3 bullet points on it? I said, what would it be? And they said, Star Wars. And I said, so tell me more about it. And they start talking in this language. Again, I have no idea what the heck they're talking about. And I said, okay, just pretend I'm like in 6th grade and I'm possibly the smart kid in 6th grade, but that's who you're talking to, okay? And I said, so tell me more about it. And they said, well, it doesn't work. It's a lemon. And I said, well, tell me more about that. What are you talking about? And they go, well, basically it's a weapon system that if some, like missile goes off across the world, somehow we're supposed to like figure out that right away, right? And find another missile that's going to hit that missile and drop it down. And he's like, it doesn't work. And I'm like, well, do you got a metaphor for it? And he goes, yeah, it's kind of like having an umbrella trying to think you're protecting yourself, but there's no nylon on the umbrella. I'm like, okay. So it's a lemon. You guys can put together like a 3 bullet point thing. Yes. I said, well, do you trust me on this? They're like, yes, kinda. I said, okay, well, I got an idea. I went home and I made 3 lemon costumes out of felt. And then I made these baseball caps that had like planets around on them and missiles coming around, and I ordered some, Big Bird yellow tights. Now you can imagine that when the state fair came around, that there were 3 erudite academics in the parking lot putting on their Big Bird tights and their lemon outfits and their hats, and they walked into the state fair. That first day they got back and they're like, holy man, we have more people to sign up for this than we've ever had sign up for this. We're so excited. And this one guy goes, who would have ever thought that, you could get people who have like t-shirts that say, America's the best, the rest, with, a beer in one hand and a chili dog overflowing in the other, put his dinner down and sign a petition against Star Wars. But we can do it because we know that we are in this together and that the end result is something that's going to be far greater than we can ever do by ourselves. Welcome to our celebration of life. It is really awesome to be with all of you today on this beautiful sunny day. Before we sing our first hymn, would you please turn and greet your neighbor this morning?
Grace, would you like to come and light our chalice? May this flame cast its light towards better days, reminding us that the future is not simply a place we are going, but a place that we are creating. The path of new possibilities will not be found, but made. The justice we long for does not sit at the end of that inevitable arc. It lies in the bending, and that is ours to do. A new world is waiting to be built, friends. May our time together light the way. Please join me in our unison affirmation. We believe in love.
Love is the doctrine of this church.
We believe in truth.
The quest for truth is a sacrament.
We believe in helping others.
And service is our prayer.
We believe in the sacredness of life.
To the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine.
Has anyone ever seen a pig fly? Anyone? Well, guess what? I was setting up the classroom earlier this morning, and this pig was flying around. And I was a little confused at first, but then I remembered that today, this pig, whose name is Jet Pig, he's fueled by love. He and his friends are turning up at a lot of UU churches around America today. So he has a little backpack on. Shall we see what's in his backpack? You want to open it? There's a notebook and a bunch of dice. Huh. How many numbers are on a dice? To teach you all about, the Article 2 values. Yeah, it's starting to make sense now. Do we remember what Article 2 is? I'm looking at Margaret remembers. Excellent. Anyone out here remember? Kind of. Okay, so at our General Assembly this summer, we will be voting on changing the Unitarian Universalist Association bylaws and Article 2 in those bylaws, which is where currently our principals stay, but they're going to be voting on changing them more to values, and there are 6 values. Probably that's why Jetpig brought some dice over, right? Okay, let's continue. So I'm going to teach you about justice, dismantling racism and oppression so that we can have a fair world for everyone. Does that sound like a good idea? Okay, so that's J. E, equity. Respect the worthiness and dignity of every being. That sounds good. T, transformation. We are open and committed to the growth and change required to build beloved communities. Good. Jetpig is having a good time down here. Pluralism. Celebrate and learn from diverse cultures, theologies, experiences in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. I, interdependence. Honor, heal, and protect the interdependent web of existence. And generosity. Practice gratitude, share power, and share our resources. So those are going to be the values that we are going to be voting on at General Assembly. And so Jetpig is a really easy acronym for those 6 values, if you hadn't got there yet. Join together as we sing our children out.
This is a time in our service where we offer our heartfelt gratitude to organizations in our community that share values such as we share with them. This morning's offering is a split plate with Housing Assistance Corporation. Their programs assist more than 190,000 low and middle income households on Cape Cod, Nantucket, and Martha's Vineyard. HAC serves more than 6,000 households each year in 3 main areas: homelessness prevention, housing stabilization, and empowerment. Please know by looking at your order of service, there are various ways to give. You can give both to the ushers when they come through, or you can also text to give. We will now take the offering mindfully and gratefully.
This next song the choir will sing is a traditional field holler that's attributed to Huddy Ledbetter, better known as Leadbelly. Leadbelly heard the song when his Uncle Bob, who was enslaved, was picking cotton in the fields of Mississippi, and would call to his wife Sylvie to bring him water. If you'd like to hear an interview with Leadbelly's Uncle Bob, I will be putting a link to that in the Angle, the church newsletter that goes out, the e-newsletter. And today, the choir will be accompanied by Cape Cod's own Fred Clayton on stand-up bass. So we thank you, Fred, for playing along with us.
Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Bring me a little water now. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Bring me a little water now. Bring me a little water, Sylvie. Every little once in a while. Sylvie, come running, bucket in my hand. I need a little water, fast as I can. Bring me little water, Sylvie. Bring me little water.
I'd like to invite you to join with me in the spirit of prayer and meditation, followed by some shared silence. Please get comfortable in your seat and take a deep breath in with me now. These words I share with you come from the Taoist and Confucianist traditions. When all the people of the world love, then the strong will not overpower the weak. The many will not oppress the few. The wealthy will not mock the poor. The honored will not disdain the humble. And the cunning will not deceive the simple. May the silence we have shared continue to hold and heal us all. Amen.
The song Kumbaya has been in popular culture for a long time, and I want to share a bit about its origins and also, but it traveled into several states by the 1930s. People like Pete Seeger and Joan Baez sang it in the 60s, and we heard the expression spoken in the political context during the Obama era because President Obama referred to people needing to roll up their sleeves more than sing Kumbaya together. Then, of course, others riffed on that, as we know. Professor Glenn Hinson, professor of folklore at University of North Carolina, wrote a whole article that I'll be putting into the Angle, into the newsletter, that talks about how a product of African American spirituality has been turned into a term of derision. In this context here today, as part of a sacred worship, and a service dedicated to the topic of racial injustice, we want to offer you a very beautiful vocal arrangement that Laura and Marie have performed in the past and found to be very meaningful.
Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya, Kumbaya, my Lord,
Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya. Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya. Oh Lord, Kumbaya, 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 Kumbaya.
I have always loved history courses, especially when they are courses that go into storytelling or explain the experience of someone, that do kind of the psychosocial aspects of, like a time or a place or went around. That in 998 BCE, it was thought that the Russians had a choice between Christianity and Islam, and they picked Christianity because you could drink. Prince Vladimir the Great actually was evidently said, the joy of Rus is drinking. And while that makes sense when you consider the fact that it wasn't until 2011 that beer was considered alcohol in Russia. So yeah, I love the anecdotes and storytelling aspects of history. I've also, like all of you, I'm guessing, have lionized certain esteemed characters in history for their intellect, their progressive thought, founders and writers of the Declaration of Independence, people like Madison and Adams, Hamilton, Jefferson, or events that took place that seem to at least redeem a little bit of our original sin of slavery for Africans. I think it is fair to say that most of us grew up with a certain point of view around history, mostly told from the winner's side. And that is until, in large part, where Black History Month came about in 1976, where people learned more and more about people of color to celebrate and laud, and the value of taking the shine off of some of our heroes. A different way of saying that is Black History Month elucidates the need to revise history to uncover the truth. And over the years, as I've read and researched during this month, various storylines have found their way back to me, and I'm always amazed at how what I thought was true, not so much, right? Or at least it's more complicated or messy or inaccurate of what it is that we were taught. I want you to take that statement and belief that many Americans have thought, the idea that after emancipation, emancipated slaves, actually as families, were given 40 acres and a mule. Turns out General Sherman himself came up with this plan, which constituted a significant promise to African Americans. Should be noted, by the way, that Sherman did not consider himself an abolitionist. And the idea for redistributing land was not his own. It turns out that there were a group of Black ministers that went to meet with Sherman and the Secretary of War, whose name was Edwin Stanton, and they actually presented this idea, and they said the way that we can best take care of ourselves is to have land and turn and till it by our own labor. So 4 days after that meeting, in January of 1865, Sherman actually issued this special field order, which commanded that 400,000 acres of property confiscated from Confederate landowners be redistributed to Black families in 40-acre plots. So yeah, that happened, right? No. Turns out it never came to fruition. Thanks to reading and investigating more, I found out that that order was actually quite short-lived. President Andrew Johnson, God, I got to get that one right, don't I? Andrew Johnson, who followed Abraham Lincoln, he owned slaves and publicly shared his belief of white supremacy. He overturned the order before the end of the year and returned the land to the slave owners and traders who had originally owned it. Here's the thing. By some estimates, the longer-term financial implications of this reversal is staggering, because now the value of 40 acres and a mule for those freed slaves would be worth about $640 billion. So the question remains, what did happen, right? What happened most of the time is people were forced to become sharecroppers, which is another form of indentured servitude, right? So somebody's owning the land, they'd go about like giving them, a loan to pay for fertilizer and feed and stuff like that, but they jacked up the price and the interest rate on all of it. And then they intentionally underpaid the sharecropper to keep a cycle of debt and poverty going. Given this, it's a little surprising, and kind of in 2017, Black Americans only own 0.5% of American farmland. And so you got to think, like, what happened, right? Well, industrialization came about, right? So people moved to cities hoping to get better work and make more money. But then there was another problem. Most landowners, Black landowners, didn't really have legally binding wills, in large part because they didn't trust the legal system. Well, shock. So they often passed their land down to their next of kin without a clear title as heirs' property, which in turn, without a title, makes the owner of the land unable to get a mortgage, get any help from the USDA, like the agricultural piece of the government. You can't get a loan to even fix anything in your house, much less you can't get disaster relief for anything. Lacking access to financial resources, many heirs of Black-owned property either weren't able to use their land or couldn't afford to hold on to it. That's a small part of what's screwed up about all of this. And I never learned that in school. Did any of you learn that in school? No. So that's kind of a kick in the pants, as they say. And when you grow up believing one thing about your country and have like this little bit of yay, and progressive thinkers in particular, if we take someone like Thomas Jefferson. Now, I know he had flaws. He had a lot of flaws, and it seems every year I learn more. But I recently read this fabulous book by this guy named Clint Smith, and the book's called How the Word is Passed. And he tells the story of actually going to Monticello, which is Jefferson's estate, and how they've turned around doing the tours, really recognizing that Jefferson owned slaves, which I'm sure a lot of you know about. But it gets worse, like a way worse. So he used his slaves, obviously, to grow crops and for property, like to keep his property up. But he also used folks who were enslaved with him to build Monticello. So Monticello was and is a house that is 11,000 square feet, has 43 rooms, and took 40 years to build. Now, they built it on the top of a mountain that they had to shave off, and this is before they had any mechanization, right? So you have slaves digging with shovels all of this land off the top of a mountain, and then after that, they had to dig 65 feet into the ground with shovels in the middle of winter, trying just to find a water source that would work for the house. Here's the thing that I read and that hit me this time as I learned more about Jefferson. He lived an undeniably lavish life. He liked to spend time reading and writing and entertaining, a lot of entertaining. But what I didn't know, he wrote about it many times, this kind of aspirational goal of his, but his lifestyle actually kept him in debt for the rest of his life. So the aspiration never came about. Nearly all of his slaves, about 200 in total, at the time of his death, were sold so that they could pay off his debt and he could inherit, his children would have something to inherit. His white children. Friends, there is so much more to say about Jefferson, a lot more, and it isn't very flattering. But I think what is striking me is his moral inconsistencies between the language he used and believed in of equity and justice and the very privileged, kind of wealthy way of life that he couldn't do without, that kept him reliant on being dependent on human bondage. I wish that I had learned more about that and less about Jefferson's flowery language, so that I really could get a feel of whether or not what he was talking about is how he lived and loved in the world. I wish I had known more about that and known that Jefferson, the prioritization of seriously swank lifestyle, won out over doing the right thing. And it seems to me, here's the rub. When you say something and do something entirely the opposite, when what you say never really gets implemented, that's problematic. Even more problematic than that, it's tragic. Especially tragic for those of us living now. Because unless we lift up Jefferson as a tragic and hypocritical figure, we won't ever be able to admit that we as a country are also hypocritical. So once again, there's a lot in that. He may be little, but he's mighty, because he was yelling at me saying one of his best phrases ever. Why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye when you have a log in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take care of the log in your own eye to see clearly the speck in your neighbor's eye. I put him back on my desk. Now, granted, not all of that is true regarding Jefferson. I mean, he had a pretty big log in his eye, am I right? But it made me think that maybe, just maybe, the problems that people are getting all worked up about regarding teaching accurate history, black history, women's history, oppressed history in the schools isn't what we think it is about. Maybe it's not really about worrying that telling accurate history in schools will make little kids feel bad or shame them because they are white. Some have said the pushback is because adults are worried that if we tell history accurately, little kids will think the United States is a bad Now, those may be, like accurate in some ways, but I've come to believe that the reason adults are in an uproar about teaching accurate history has more to do with adults consciously or unconsciously wanting to keep all of this locked in the past because, truth be told, we are hypocrites too. And I mean, yeah, it's important to have Black History Month be a lens to reclaim accurate history and lift up Black Americans who are heroic and noteworthy. But in so doing, we turn our lens behind us, which allows us to correct the past historically, that's true, But perhaps the better work, the internal moral agency work, the speaking, pointing, like that allows me, I'm going to speak for myself. When I do this to the past, what happened to me just recently is if I really dig deep within me and try not to get all high and mighty, I'm not sure I can do that anymore if I'm honest, because my finger pointing needs to turn both to the present and now and to myself. See, I've come to believe that Black History Month is a chance for me to decide whether or not I want to be like Tom. Do I want to be like Thomas Jefferson? Bet you nobody's called him Tom before. Should call him Tommy. He was from the South, actually. Okay, here's the thing. Do I want to be like Tom and say, well, here's what I believe on paper and profess to believe, but alas, when push comes to shove, I really love my lifestyle and privilege, and do I really want to give that up? And if you were to take his letters and journal entries on that topic seriously, he thought about letting his slaves go often because his conscience got the better of him. He had multiple moments of clarity where his intellect was in alignment with his values, and he wanted so badly to act on it. But instead, he let greed and avarice win out. He looked back around at his 11,000 square foot house. He probably walked into the dining room and looked at that beautiful piece of flower arrangement on his dining room table, which I am positive they had one in the foyer, and he probably, year after year after year after year. So my question to myself is, how different is it for me to know that there is no such thing as an inherited wealth for most African Americans today? That with the loss of land, whether to heirs, property discrimination, or other causes, the Black community has been deprived of hundreds of billions of dollars worth of wealth, which has contributed significantly to modern racial economic inequality. I know that to be true. And when I know that and then act like, well, I can do something about that now, or wait until I, feel more financially secure myself, or have more in my little pile of privilege over here, how am I any less of a hypocrite than Jefferson? Do I want to say one thing and live a different one? I'd like to say no, but this new lens of hypocrisy has me wondering. Especially when it doesn't take much, really, to look at few practices that have happened in our lifetime not that long ago. In the early 70s, the Rockefeller drug campaign was launched, which started a ball rolling that has impacted generations of people. While New York started this particular kind of set of laws, it went all over the country. And it was implemented in ways that had never really ever happened before. Mandatory prison sentences of 15 years to life for drug dealers and addicts, even those caught with small amounts of marijuana or cocaine or crack or heroin. And the results of these laws are still with us, but even at the time of implementation, many people were sounding the alarm. White people were using a lot of drugs in the 1970s. Apparently, I was a little kid, but am I right? They were using a lot of drugs in the 70s. You guys better wake up to this one. And in so doing, if using authority from 1934 to 1960, and, the government did do something good by passing the Fair Housing Act in 1968. But the end result of redlining and discrimination is we pushed black homeowners into neighborhoods with subpar schools and resources, so much so that a lot of them didn't have grocery stores or hospitals. And while all these black families were being redlined, my own Scandinavian relatives, newly off the boat from Norway, didn't have to contend with any of that. Which also means that my family could buy land and property and build up inherited wealth, while most blacks, for so many reasons, never really had the opportunity. If I am honest with the history, it seems to me I have benefited from what amounts to a scam job for black Americans and one big cheating game that allows whites to get to the top. Do I want to admit that? Not really. But the truth is, I do know all of those things. And once I know them, it's not like I can unknow them. So if I don't do anything to right these wrongs besides announce them as a truth, as in owning my own privilege, which is usually the extent to what I do. What occurred to me this week, and the question that came to me is, am I any better? A number of you were in church, but I'm just going to tell you, for those of you that weren't here, I talked a lot about this awesome book called Poverty by American, by a guy named Matthew Desmond. Not Poverty in America, but Poverty by America. Here's a little synopsis of what he does in the book. Desmond shows how affluent Americans knowingly and unknowingly keep poor people poor. Those of us who are financially secure exploit the poor, driving down their wages while forcing them to overpay for housing and access to cash and credit. We prioritize the subsidization of our wealth over the alleviation of poverty, designing a welfare state that gives the most to those who need the least. And we stockpile opportunity in exclusive communities, creating zones of concentrated riches alongside those of concentrated despair. You can't read his work without being middle class or upper class and going, ouch, 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 ouch. Mainly, this is pertinent today because the poverty rate for blacks is double what it is for whites. Plain and simple, those of us who are middle class get twice, if not thrice, as many government handouts than those on the bottom. From taking a benefit for mortgage interest to 529 college plans to assuming there's money left over. Do I act like I have 4 children instead of 3? And that 1/4 of the estate goes to an account to help black families buy a home or pool that money with others to help build inherited wealth. What if I decided I wasn't going to take the tax benefit of my mortgage interest and instead do something else with it? Which, by the way, is what Matthew Desmond says, at bare minimum, all of us who are middle and upper class should do. There are many options. And the point is this, of which I think, if I'm brave enough to say this to you guys today, I'm not just asking myself, but I'm asking you as well. Do we want to be Tom or not? And if the answer is not, we've got decisions to make. But perhaps they will be decisions that will move us closer to that vision of the U.S. we want it to be for all, not just in theory, but in practice too. One that ushers in a spiritual discipline of alignment with our values that we've never dreamed nor pushed ourselves to do ever before. May that be our charge and our calling, to rid ourselves, my friends, of our hypocrisy around us and within us as well. May it be so. Amen.
We invite you to rise in body or spirit and join us in number 117 in the Teal hymnal, Building a New Way.
To be free.
Closing words, and you're going to vamp. I love it. Okay, cool. All right, can we hands for the closing words? You got to move, though, a little bit, okay? Whatever we can do or dream we can do, let us begin it. Boldness has genius and power and magic in it. May we ever be bold in our living and our loving. Amen!
Amen.